I swear to God, when Marvel makes Thor unworthy, it goes so hard. It's just something in the way that this all-powerful god that could summon lightning and destroy worlds with his hammer can fall from such grace, becoming a depowered drunk, toting around a big huge axe while riding a magical goat that accompanies Thor on his quest to become worthy again. It's just so unbelievably raw. But in another instance where Thor becomes unworthy, it somehow manages to go even crazier. Because Thor doesn't just become the god of thunder. He also becomes the god of fists. In this comic that's just straight up dripping with pure, unadulterated dude bro energy. As we start the story with Thor on top of a mountain, said to be cursed because all who have climbed to the peak have never returned. But for the first time in centuries, Thor begins to smile from ear to ear, experiencing true peace while creating snow angels. Literally crying tears of joy, but it wouldn't last long. Because not too far from Thor, crackles of thunder could be heard, drawing themselves closer and closer to Thor, disturbing his peace. As an object would inevitably crash itself in front of Thor, revealing itself to be Mjolnir, following Thor, as Thor would become angry at the sight of his hammer, demanding to know why it won't leave him be. Thor would begin to strain himself, attempting to wield the weapon he was meant to hold in his grasp for maybe the 5,000th time, but Mjolnir simply wouldn't budge. Just the same as Thor had failed to wield Mjolnir when Asgard was turned to cinder all around him by the hands of the Masters of Evil. And just the same when Midgard was forced to succumb to the Masters of Evil's will. After so many attempts to pick up Mjolnir, and all met with nothing, Thor would become a hopeless drunk, seeking to be left alone, but even doing this he managed to fail. Because no matter where Thor went, Mjolnir followed, serving as a constant reminder to Thor of his inadequacy, and a constant reminder of his unworthiness. Thor's life in shambles, he sought to finally rid himself of the past and venture to the most remote place in the world, but no matter how far he ran, his past and even his depression had followed suit. Thor furious, he'd begin to bludgeon his own hammer with his fists to no avail, until a voice reached out telling Thor that that's no way to throw a fist. As a strange man approaches Thor, exclaiming that he throws his punches with rage and no focus, and with such blows cause more harm to himself, but maybe that's his goal after all. The strange man introduces himself as Lee Kung, the Thunderer, guardian of Kunlun, asking Thor if he came seeking enlightenment, but Thor only seeks oblivion. To which the Thunderer says to Thor that he came to the right place, opening a portal, leading the two of them to the long decimated temple of Kunlun, destroyed by the Masters of Evil. The Thunderer tells Thor that during the attack, they had lost their champion known as the Iron Fist, but in their hunger for more power, they did not realize that one cannot burn a dragon. Because behind the great door lies the immortal dragon Shu Lao, and within him holds the power of the Iron Fist, a power seeking a true vessel. So the Thunderer asks Thor the Unworthy if he would be the vessel of the Iron Fist. However, Thor feels that he isn't worthy of the Iron Fist because he's been unworthy his entire life. Until the hammer starts nudging itself on Thor, instigating him, leading Thor to punch his hammer again. Once hitting the hammer, the Thunderer would begin to train Thor to become the Iron Fist, telling Thor to hit the hammer again. So Thor, day in and day out, would hit his hammer, leaving pools of blood all around himself. Hitting Mjolnir, made from Uru, the strongest metal in all the realms, strong enough to break worlds. As much so strong enough to break the bones of gods, as Thor hits the blood-soaked Mjolnir again and again. After 60 days of hitting Mjolnir, Thor's hands became hammers themselves, and with each targeted blow, Mjolnir started to groan. Until one day, Mjolnir finally began to dodge Thor's blows. Almost as if with each blow from Thor's fists made the hammer quake with pain, and with this thought, it delighted Thor enough to hit Mjolnir harder and harder. This would even lead the hammer to begin fighting back against Thor, attempting to strike him down with thunder. And in their final battle, the Thunderer would yell to Thor that the hammer quakes with fear, and to show the hammer just what kind of god Thor really is. Not the god of wind, rain, or of storms, but the god who punches the storms, as Thor hits Mjolnir with a force he never thought possible, sending the mighty hammer plummeting to the ground. And after finally breaking the hammer's spirit, the Thunderer asks if Thor will finally claim his hammer now. Will Thor lift his hammer? Thor then thinks for only but a moment, and says to the Thunderer, he will not. The Thunderer then strikes Thor, sending Thor hurtling to the other side of the mountain as they both begin to fight to prove if Thor is really worthy of becoming the Iron Fist, because the Thunderer is Thor's final test. Thunderer versus Thunder God. But Thor doesn't like to be called Thunder God. Thor hits the Thunderer so hard, the Thunderer is sent blasting through the door of the dragon. The Thunderer would then say that he's never before felt such a perfect punch, and that he was glad to be bludgeoned by Thor, But as Thor approaches, Thor finds that the dragon Shu Lao has been long dead, and so the power of the Iron Fist. It turns out the Masters of Evil had actually killed Shu Lao, and the Iron Fist was never meant to be Thor's power. But the Thunderer had trained Thor to be ready to take his revenge on the Masters of Evil after all. The Thunderer, before fading away, would then say to Thor that he trained him to outlast any great weapon any evil could ever use, and to use them well. The almighty God of Fists. Thor, God of Fists, determined to fight the Masters of Evil, would also be accompanied by Mjolnir so long as they stayed out of each other's way. And while figuring out where to go next, a streak of flame would emerge. And out of nowhere, Ant-Man and Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes would offer the God of Fists a ride to help aid Thor in his quest to defeat the Masters of Evil, ending the story. Wasn't that story just straight up bloody awesome? Thor can go so crazy given the proper story, I swear. But I hope you guys like this story, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.